Hello friends, my name is Educator Katie, and today we are going to be doing your first YouTube video for February of 2021. Yay! We're going to be talking about energy conservation today. If you're here in Montana like us, chances are that you are experiencing some rather cold temperatures this week. Most of our highs are in the negative digits, which makes it really cold. And energy conservation is very important for us and for all the animals that live around us during these times. Now, you might have noticed on our Facebook, we've been talking about deserts. Hopefully that's been helping you feel a little bit warmer. But there are also some cold deserts in the world too. But regardless of whether an organism lives in a cold desert, a hot desert, a warm place, a cold place, every organism has to worry about energy conservation, typically in the form of how much heat is in their body. So we're going to tell you about some energy conservation differences between different animals, and then at the end of the video, we'll give you a fun challenge you can try at home. Let's get started. Energy conservation is when an animal has to make sure that they have enough energy in their body, whether that is from outside sources like food, whether that is from internal sources like fat storage, whether that is from water storage, whether that is from whatever it is. Energy conservation is important. Where an animal lives greatly impacts how they conserve energy. Also, how they control their internal body temperature greatly impacts how they conserve energy. Part of this is because different animals have different amounts of control over how hot or cold their internal body temperature can get. Now, if you've heard the terms cold-blooded or warm-blooded before, these terms really apply here, and we'll talk about why. Cold-blooded animals aren't always cold-blooded, and warm-blooded animals aren't always warm. In fact, we're going to tell you the scientific words for these to make it a little bit more clear. The word ectothermic means outside temperature or outside heat, and that's what a cold-blooded animal is. They get their heat from outside of their body. Their internal body temperature, their blood temperature, changes depending on the environment around them. So that means if the cold-blooded animal, the ectothermic animal, like a reptile or an amphibian, is living in a hot place, they are going to be pretty warm most of the time as far as their blood is concerned. If they're living in a cold place, they're going to have to work a bit harder to manage their internal body temperature. Remember, nothing that they eat is going to contribute to the heat of their internal body temperature. So they have to control their internal body temperature with behaviors, meaning they come out when the sun is out, or they'll come out at night if it's too hot during the day. Ectothermic animals have to rely on their environment for their internal body temperature. Just like any other animal, they can get too hot, they can get too cold. So they do have to be careful depending on the environment that they are in. Now, the other word for warm-blooded animals is endothermic, or inside heat. We are endothermic animals, just like the other mammals and birds in the world. Endothermic animals, inside heat, create heat from inside their body. The food that we eat gives us the energy we need to maintain our internal body heat. This means that we typically need to eat more than an ectothermic animal our size because we are using a lot of our food energy to maintain our heat. Wherever they live, endothermic, ectothermic animals, we all have to maintain our body temperature. And again, this has to do with energy conservation because if you're using all of your energy to stay warm, you don't have energy to survive because you have to be able to find more food to be able to keep that energy going. If you're an ectothermic animal and it's too hot for you outside, you might run out of energy staying in a cold spot waiting to go hunt for more food or go find more food. So it's really important for animals to adapt to the environment that they are in. An example of an endothermic animal's adaptations to heat are elephants and fennec foxes. You might think that these two very different animals don't have a lot in common, but they both have big ears. Big elephant ears, big cute little fennec fox ears. Both of these ears help release heat in a hot environment. So fennec foxes can release heat instead of having to worry about getting all sweaty, right? And they usually come out at night. This is a behavioral thing that they'll do that helps them to survive. Elephant ears, if you've seen them, they'll wave their ears like this because it also helps cool them off, kind of like if you're fanning yourself on a hot day. In cold environments, like here in Montana right now, you don't want big extremities like big ears, big noses. In cold environments, animals have smaller extremities. They usually have bulky bodies that are meant to maintain their heat in their core. They also typically have extra thick fur and layers of blubber, or one or the other. This also helps with energy conservation. Now you might be wondering, where do humans fit in all this? I mentioned earlier that we are endothermic, or inside heat animals. Like many other mammals, those animals that have live babies have hair and typically produce milk. We have an internal body temperature that is pretty high. Our blood temperature is about 98 degrees unless we're sick, which is really warm. Now, in a warm environment, we have adaptations that help us to survive. Some of those adaptations are sweating. When it's really hot out, we sweat because when the breeze comes past us, that evaporative cooling, when the sweat is evaporating off of your body, helps cool you off. However, if it's too hot, your body can't produce enough sweat, or you run out of the water that's needed to produce sweat and you can get too dehydrated or too hot in general. This hot body temperature takes a lot of energy to maintain. That's why we need to eat at least a few times a day to make sure that our body temperature stays stable. Oftentimes, you might find yourself wanting more snacks or more food in the wintertime. And that's totally okay, because when your body is at 98 degrees and the outside temperature is at 100 degrees, you have to cool off a little bit to make sure that you're staying cool at the right temperature. But in the cold weather, you have to keep your body at 98 degrees even when it's -4 degrees like it was today. One of the ways that our bodies maintain heat in cold weather is by shivering. When you shiver, when your muscles are contracting, if you can do it on purpose, try it with me. When your muscles are shivering, they're creating heat. So that takes a lot of energy. You might feel tired after having made yourself shiver. Because we don't have layers of blubber or really thick fur or hair on our bodies, it can be rather difficult for us to keep ourselves warm in cold environments. Luckily, we've invented clothing and coats, and we follow the examples of other animals. Other animals that tolerate the cold way better than we do are animals like seals, polar bears, penguins, whales. Most of those have either blubber or fur or both, or thick layers of feathers that help them to cover their body and keep the heat inside. Some of those animals, like seals and penguins, their fur and or feathers traps air against their body so that even when they're diving, the air stays next to their skin, keeping them warm, and they don't get wet right at the skin level, which is really clever. Humans, like I said, have followed the example of many animals, and we have coats that are thick and puffy because it helps us insulate or keep the heat next to our bodies. Also, in the winter, if you're like me, you like to layer up. You like to put multiple layers on, like underneath your shirts or underneath your pants. And this is one more way that we help prevent our heat from escaping from our body. Even hats, because 60% of our heat is lost through the top of our heads. So hats also help us keep our heat in our body. And with that, we have your challenge. You're going to be testing layering up for warmth. Make sure you have your permission to go outside because it is very cold right now and you might be a little bit too cold to go outside safely for a long time. Here are some different variables to try. One of them is, what kind of layers do you have? Thick or thin layers, soft, cozy layers, or smooth, slick layers? And what about small or big layers? If you think about it, my shirt is kind of small in the sense that it's pretty close to my skin. But how would I feel if I had a really big sweatshirt on that was huge on me? Would that make me warmer or colder? Another variable to consider is how many layers you have. How many can you fit on your body? Is it practical to have a body like this and then you can't move because you have too many layers on? Probably not, right? So think about how many layers you can have. Is there such thing as too many? Or is less layers better? Or is it the kind of layer? Or is it both? Experiment, figure it out, have fun, stay warm, and let us know how it goes. See if you can figure out what works best for us mostly hairless mammals, and send us pictures or a description of what happened on our Facebook, or you can email us, just education@zoomontana.org. We'll see you next time.